Morning, everybody. As you're joining us, we have our Monday session today with Stephen Hall, aka Steven Spielberg. He is absolutely amazing to work with. We've been working with Stephen for the last 17 years since Unique Speaker Bureau kind of started. Since we got out of the starting gate, Stephen has been with us, and he had the very difficult task of coming to our showcases and basically creating these 3-minute powerful clips from 20 or 30 speakers that would be at the showcase stage. Not an easy task, to say the least. But he is really he's evolved obviously over the years, and he's now sort of epitomizes communication in the modern era, really. And it's from products in the past like conference TV, when you invite so many key people and a lot can't make it. Stephen sort of steps in, captured the essence of the conference and condensed it down into bite-sized chunks so people could actually get a sense and a flavor of what the conference is all about, and now has evolved into to brand avatars. And we talk a lot about fuel, ignite, accelerate. The brand avatar is the perfect medium or platform to be able to do that effectively. So some companies are even calling it the conscience of the company, or where you create these fantastic characters that are able to sort of fuel your events, excite people, ignite on the day. And of course, really probably the most important, how do you accelerate and create a sustainable message long after the conference is gone? And the brand avatar can play a key role in that. So I'm going to hand it over to Stephen. He's going to take us away for the next 20 minutes, and enjoy.
Fantastic, Paul. Thank you so much for that amazing intro. Your check is in the post. So good morning, everybody. Today I'd like to talk to you about something that I'm incredibly passionate about, and that is about building experiences for your events using avatars and digital humans. So, let me just get my slides working. There we go. Okay, so the first thing that I want to share with you is this idea that the way in which we perceive events is really as a story, as a story that unfolds in 3 acts. And as Paul alluded to in his intro, this ties in quite nicely with the Fuel, Ignite, Accelerate structure that USB utilize a lot in their events. So if you consider that Act 1 is everything that happens before the event, Act 2 is the main focus, which is the event itself, and then Act 3 is everything that happens after the event and how you carry that message and the information beyond just the event itself. One of the key things around storytelling is if you understand how scriptwriters, for example, and screenwriters build scripts, they use this process of reverse engineering. So what they'll do is they'll actually focus on what their end result is first, and then reverse engineer backwards to achieve that result. So in the case of a story, it might be a message or a piece of information that they want to put across. And then what they do is build key moments along that journey. And often those key moments, it doesn't just focus on one key moment. So in this little graph, there's one moment, and that might be the midpoint. But it could be a series of key moments throughout the experience that takes people on a journey. And that's really how we look at eventing. It's a journey that you're taking people on. It's not just a moment and one thing in time. So, in order to achieve that, really what you've got to do is start off with, what do you want people to think, feel, and do? What is it that you want them to absorb in terms of information? How do you want them to feel about it? And then what actions do you want them to take further beyond the event itself? So for us, we use avatars as our sort of pivotal asset. So the idea is that you would build a character, an avatar, that becomes a centralized asset that you can utilize in a different media formats, and then structured throughout that narrative journey, that story arc that you will have developed for your event. And there's four main categories of assets that you can utilize the avatar for. The one is recorded media. So that might be videos, still images, animated GIFs, things that can be used, for example, on social media, shared with people on WhatsApp, used in emailers. Then you've got the live performance itself, which is the role that the avatar performs, where people come and they actually experience it live in the room as an interactive element. And there's a number of things that you can do with an avatar. There's the co-host MC aspect to it, but there's a number of other things which I'll touch on throughout this presentation. And then we're able to integrate AI into the use of an avatar. So, for example, you can integrate a chatbot as a piece of, as a sort of an information service that you can then have a conversation with the avatar, either as a digital concierge, so something that greets people and gives them information about the event. And that can be in a kiosk at the event itself, or on a WhatsApp, or on a on a mobile device, or on a website, where people can get more information by interacting and having a conversation with the avatar. And then there's the physical media side. So an avatar doesn't just live in the virtual world. What we like to do is to bring it back into the real world as a piece of physical media. And this might be, for example, a standee or a cutout. We also create avatar statues, and I'll show you some examples of these as I go along. So these are the different types of media that can be created using this one single asset of the avatar. And the avatar really is designed to represent the brand or the personality of the event itself. So there are two different types of avatars that we create. I use avatar in its kind of broadest term, which is a digital representation, either of a personality or of a real person. But specifically here, avatars are our sort of stylized version of the avatar. So as you can see here, this was an avatar we created for ABSA, and she's more stylized. So the skin textures and the look of her is not as realistic as the digital human, where we're going for photorealism. And what's fantastic about both options is that they both serve different purposes. So a stylized version will be more forgiving in terms of its representation and and its animation, whereas a digital human can be more engaging because there's this aspect of realism to it, which can be really engaging for people to experience. Linked to that is also this idea of a digital double. So this is where we actually create an avatar of someone, whether it be someone in the business, or in the case of here, this was a job that we did for Dell last year for the Dell Forum. And we digitized Mikasa, the band, so all three band members. This is just Jay as an example. So we take a whole lot of reference photos, and then we turn them into a digital double of themselves, which we can then use in those different medias that I spoke about earlier. What's great about that is that they can either perform at the event. You could have a conversation with your digital double, for example. We can create pre-recorded content. So, if the person just records their voice, for example, speaking, we can then take that content and turn it into animation. So there's a number of different things that we can do with a digital double. So what I'd like to do is just chat about what we did for Festival of Eventing, and just to also give you a bit of insight into our process and how we go about doing this. So typically what we do is, so here we were creating a fictitious avatar. So this was just based on a fictitious character that was designed to represent the brand for the event. So we started off with a mood board where we just kind of throw out some ideas once we've received the brief from the client. And these are really just designed, just designed to, set an initial sort of scope of what the avatar is intended to look like. And then based on the feedback from there, we then start the process of actually developing the avatar. In the case here, it was a digital human. So we were going for a more photorealistic look. And then from there, we can take it and create animated content. There you're seeing just some of the screens of animation, doing some motion capture, which in this particular instance was quite tricky because I had to perform as a lady. Ideally, what we do is actually have the type of character come and do the motion capture that suits the role, but we were under a bit of a time crunch, so I had to do that myself. So I was directed by my wife, which was kind of fun. But anyway, and then for the actual facial animation, there we used the actual performer who was based in Cape Town. She recorded herself, and then we translated that into animation for her face. And that gives a very high fidelity in terms of the look and feel of that animation. The other asset that we typically will create is some sort of an environment or setting for the avatar to perform in. Because we can go do something very simple, like just have a pull-up banner or a sort of a white studio. But what we thought in this particular case for Festival of Eventing was that she would be a kind of a news reporter who would be coming in and as a co-host be broadcast in from a news studio. So we set up a studio for her. We also created a sort of a behind the scenes or a backstage area where she could have her hair and makeup done. And then the main studio was the studio environment over here.
Hey guys, it's your girl Nia, your guide
So I just want to turn that sound down a little bit.
and the venturer to the African calendar.
So this was Act 1. This is what we did before the event. We created a series of stills and poses and things that could be utilized on social media. And then we also created this Know Before You Go video, which was really just designed to give people essential information that they needed to know before coming through to the event. So it was, and that was sent out on WhatsApp to their database, and it also was intended to kind of introduce the character to people before they would then see her live at the event itself.
Minus degrees. I wouldn't breathe that.
And then over here, this was the actual event itself. So we created a number of things. We had the Ask Nia app, which was a chatbot where you could actually talk to Nia. What we did is we cloned the performer's voice with her permission, so that there was continuity with her voice through into the Ask Nia app. We also created a standee with where this was life size, so that people could do selfies with her, as well as there were some QR codes on here where you could link back to Ask Nia and go and have a conversation with her. And then here, this is the live show. So we set up one of those kind of key moments in the event. We did a fun thing where we had her as a doing a weather forecast, and then suddenly her studio flooded with water. So and this was all done in real time. If you see over here, this is backstage. So essentially there you've got the actual front of house, and we had this little booth here with the performer and the tech, and she has a feed from there, so she can hear exactly what Alan was saying to her, and then she's interacting in real time back onto the stage. We had to do a couple of stunts actually just to prove to people that this wasn't a recording, that this is actually done in real time live at the event. And then, yeah, it's always fun to add in something to use the technology because, this, as I said, this is all done in real time. So we had the studio flooding with water, and as a sort of a joke on the bad weather that was happening in Cape Town at the moment, or at that particular time. And then post-event, what we did is to carry the message forward is that we had the various photographs that were taken of people at the event edited into photographs of Nia. and those were then sent out to people. So she was integrated into the photos that were then sent to people that they could then have access to post-event, and that helped to continue the message and her branding element after the event. It's also possible to create videos after the event to say thanks for attending, and various other types of media that can be utilized post-event as well. Okay, so I just want to quickly touch on some of the other projects that we've done with using avatars at events. What you're seeing over here, this was the Dell event. So we created those avatars, and we created an AV that was then shown at the same time as the band performed on stage. And so they had, what was kind of interesting about this is the fact that you've got the real live performers on stage, and then their digital selves performing in this AV that supported them. And the whole idea with the AV was South Africa 2025, because this was the Dell event is very much around AI and futurism. And so we were able to utilize AI to create a number of interesting imagery showing what the country would, what Johannesburg, for example, looks like in 2025, and then incorporated their avatars into that. And then we use motion capture and so on to animate them and bring them to life. This was an event for Old Mutual. This was their 51 Club at Sun City, and we created Aurora, this ethereal, sort of fairy-like co-host. And she was set in this kind of magical land and was there to co-host. She also did some singing and entertainment, and there with the MC. This is a rehearsal image. This is for ABSA, and we created an ABSAverse. So this was a space station floating above Earth, and she was being beamed down into an event from the space station. We have a little ABSA satellite over there, and she co-hosted the event there for ABSA. And then this was what we did with the USB showcase at the beginning of the year. We created this whole world using the Avatar theme from the movie, created a blue avatar. And really what we were trying to do here is to show people and illustrate the fact that, really there are no limits to what you can do with an avatar in terms of, the imagination and how we could really push those creative boundaries. She also co-hosted or co-emceed these segments, as well as we had her performing a song as part of the entertainment. And then lastly, I just want to touch on the fact that Brand Avatar is actually part of the company Uzi Media. And, we've, as Paul said, we've been working with USB for a very long time, both in media and content production, as well as now with avatars. We do a range of services as far as eventing is concerned, intro videos, filming, animation, all of those things. So Brand Avatar is just our focus around avatars and how we can utilize them as a connection and communication tool at events and help you really ignite your audience. But if we also have more generalized production services as well. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much. Hand back to you, Paul.
Nice and tidy. I appreciate it. Stephen, a couple of questions from Pedro. Really likes the tech. Ballpark costs, timelines. And these are good questions, particularly the timelines, right? I know the ballpark costs, it's not too heavy. And any data that sort of quantifies additional brand value from using avatars that would be obvious to mention at this point. So the 3 points there for you, Stephen.
Yes. Okay. So first of all, in terms of costs, the way that we do this is we've got the design process. It's kind of broken up into a couple of stages. So we've got the design process for the avatar, and the building of the asset as well as the environment. And that asset depends on whether we're going with something. Let me just jump back to over here. So if we're doing something stylized or something photorealistic, there's a slight price difference there. And then also the environment. What environment are we going to be building and utilizing for the avatar? And then there's the media that we'd create around that. So stills and video, if you would like that. And then there is the performance component to that. So the performance aspect, there's a sort of a base rate for the tech, which is essentially the motion capture system and the technician to be there. But then you've also got other variables such as performer. So who is going to perform as the avatar? Will we bring in an external performer? We've often worked with people inside the company. So for example, we set up a kiosk for an event for Old Mutual. This was a separate one to the one I was talking about earlier. And we had one of their product experts as the avatar, performing as the avatar, who then engaged with people and could speak around the product and so on. And then, depending on what we do after the event, I'm sure that USB can just share that kind of breakdown with you, and you can see a menu list of the different costs and the various items. But that just sort of breaks it down for you. In terms of timeline, usually what we need to build an avatar is between 2 and 3 weeks to build the avatar as an initial step in the process. We can concurrently then build the environment. And then from there, depending on the content that we need to create pre-event. So typically it's about a 4 to 6 week process. If we're also going to create some additional content such as a video or stills. I mean, stills are obviously much quicker, but video takes a little bit more time to create something prior to the event. And then obviously you've got the event itself. Usually at an event, the way that we handle that is we will go in and have a rehearsal first. Again, it just depends on the context and what's happening with the avatar, but there'll always be some sort of a rehearsal aspect to it, as well as then a live performance aspect. And then what was the third question there, Paul? I've got so embroiled in those two.
No, sure. That's great, Stephen. And just about any data that quantifies additional brand value from using avatars. And I think it's a good question, isn't it? I mean, I know it's a broad topic, but we could definitely add a couple of things in. And maybe I should ask you, what's kind of like one of the favorite projects that you've worked on, and would that answer help embellish your answer for Pedro on the digital brand? Maybe.
So in terms of actual hard data, Pedro, I don't actually have any hard data. The best data that I have is going to be the feedback that I get from the client in terms of the audience, how the audience reacted and responded to what we did. So it's typically, so for example, let me just jump to the other projects section here. So for example, here at this Old Mutual event, some of the things to quantify were the selfies that people were taking with the avatar, and the talk that was happening after the event about the avatar and the experience. There's one of the things that people always ask is this real? In other words, is it being done live, or is it just a recording? And we always try and do things, little stunts, if you like, to make it feel real, because that is the part that kind of plays with people's minds a little bit, just to realize that this is actually being done live and it's a real interactive element. And the way in which people talk about it afterwards is our greatest measure at this stage. Similarly with the USBI event, seeing people filming those sessions with their phones and sharing them with their friends afterwards, again, is our greatest measure, just in terms of the response that we get from the audience and creating those wow moments that sparks people to actually want to record it or to find out more or to discuss it afterwards. So whilst that data is at this stage kind of incidental, it's not hard kind of facts in terms of numbers. It's that interactive element that creates the response that we measure the success by. The same thing happened with this Dell event. I mean, there are a number of shots, which I don't have in this particular one, but of people videoing and recording what is actually happening. And it's the fact that they're taking that action to want to record it and share it, that encourages us that what we're doing is having an impact that is beneficial to both the brand and the experience on the day.
And Stephen, just to sort of add to that, I was at the IMC, the big massive marketing conference last week, and the guys were saying what's really important with a brand in terms of adding value out there is your messaging to the community. Or what are you doing to uplift the community? What are you doing to be remembered? 75% of all brands globally, if they went out of business tomorrow, they wouldn't be remembered, which is terribly sad. So I just feel the brand avatar is such a lovely medium, a lovely platform to kind of get those really important messages across that particularly when you are trying to uplift and build the community around you. Brian has a question. So Brian is, for those of you that don't know Brian, he's the CEO of Better Place to Work, a global company that partners with us on these weekly sessions, and it's all about building the workplace up and he was saying, and Stephen, I think you can definitely validate this question: do employees engage well with the avatar? Do they encourage communication? And I'm just thinking of a few projects that we've worked on where exactly that, where companies really need to communicate internally, and they often struggle to do that. And of course, then everybody forms their own narrative. But utilizing a brand avatar is sort of like a happy medium, if you like, a neutral medium almost, can work well. Am I right? And also help some of the executive teams where they struggle a little bit to communicate effectively themselves, but through a character can do better. But yeah, you'd answer that better than me.
Yes, absolutely. It comes back to, where does the origins of this sort of avatar idea come from? And if you think of a brand ambassador or a brand mascot, from the previous century, the brand mascots, that is really, it's an updated version for the digital age. The value that a mascot had, for example, in terms of connecting with an audience, it's all about adding a face and personality to your communications, and that's really what we are doing with avatars and digital humans. Our motto and our objective is we humanize brands, and that's really what it comes down to. We're adding a face and a personality, a character to the communication, which makes it more personable, which allows you to communicate with more emotion and to create memorable moments. So, for example, if you're doing internal communications, this is something that we've done a fair amount of with using an avatar, it really just it brings it to life. It really brings the communications to life because you've now got this character. I mean, if you think about the context of storytelling, what is the pinnacle, or what is the foundation of storytelling? It's about character. If you experience a story, the first thing that you engage with typically will be the characters in that story, and that's really where our philosophy comes from as well, in terms of creating avatars and using them in communications effectively.
A lovely answer. All right. So do we have any sort of closing comments from the Better Place to Work team? Brian, Shay, anybody wants to say something? And then maybe we hand over to Kathy then to close us off. And Mirinda, thank you for your nice comment there. It's quite a technical comment that you can have a look at, Stephen. But Mirinda's very happy with how I see your work utilizes for XR applications. Just happy to see the tech has actually used wonderful applications. So yeah.
Just like to add, Paul, the progress that's been made in this whole world, and I can't wait for the next 50 years to see what's going to be around. But it's really exciting and very, very effective, I should imagine.
Absolutely. So well put. Stephen's always ahead of his time, Shay.
Yeah.
Even for this world. Good. Well, thank you. And good to have you on the call. Shay is the founder of Better Place to Work. Over to you, Kathy.
Thanks very much, Stephen. That was impressive. And I have seen the brand avatars and the project on a large scale and a much smaller scale, and they're equally impressive. very futuristic and something totally unique. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then next week we're going to have Samir Raji. He's a futurist and an HR advisor, and his topics that he usually speaks on are business transformation, digital, and AI. So please tune in for that one. It's definitely not to be missed. Thanks, everybody.
Cool. Thank you.